Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our council meeting for it's the 17th of November already. We'll call the meeting to order, and of course, the first thing we deal with is adopting the agenda. I have a recommendation that the agenda for the November 17th, 2025 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed. Did I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Rankin and Councillor Hearn, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried, thank you. We'll do the disclosure of pecuniary interest. I have nothing on that I have to declare on today's agenda.
Yes, 5B, the Kirkness Municipal Drain Award. The first part of the RFP was that my cousin's construction company doing the job, so I don't want to vote on that, so I will recuse myself from that.
That's
Sorry, 5B.
5B, okay. Thank you. Councillor Rankin?
I have nothing.
Councillor Hearn?
No.
Okay, thank you. Guess that brings us to O Canada. So if you have that queued up, Kathy, rise for O Canada. Thank you. Next on our agenda is our county council update featuring Councillor Steve O'Neill this evening. Welcome, Steve.
We're on green. Okay. Thanks, everyone, and good evening. Couple of things. Automated speed enforcement program, as you're well aware of, I'm sure, was canceled on November 14th by the province. We are going to get some funds from the province to pay for speed reduction solutions in those areas. $210,000 is what the county got. County staff are awaiting direction from the province on what solutions this money can be used for. We're also going to keep the speed cameras active, recording data at each of the 7 countywide locations for the next few months until we can purchase more Black Cat units to deploy throughout the county. The cameras will not be doing tickets, obviously, just collecting data. Speeding is still an issue throughout the county, and the Black Cat, they give us information, and that allows us to target areas for enhanced OPP enforcement or to work on other solutions in those locations. In solid waste services, we're proposing to expand the business collection of recyclables in the 14 area municipalities that currently have Thursday AM cart pickup. Approximately 400 businesses are using the cart system in the county currently. We're expecting another 300 businesses to sign up. These will be businesses that are in the urban area but are not on the main street in those corridors. So somebody 2 blocks off with a business, a dentist office, or I like to use the curling clubs, they will be able to get a bin and have recycling picked up. The county will be paying for that. Estimate is about 100 and could be between 120 and $150,000 per year, depending upon how many sign up. Staff expect no more than 300 to sign up, and they're using that because they've already talked to virtually every business in the county, whether they were in an urban area or even rural, to get their opinion on recycling collections. Originally, the plan was to piggyback on the residential collection routes, and the county would have paid for the businesses having their materials picked up, but that was dismissed by the circular material / producer group. So we need to do something to expand the service to our small businesses. Large businesses like the grocery stores and that they're not setting bins out, as obviously. If this is approved by council at the end of the month, we expect pickup could commence as early as April 1st of 2026. County staff are still expecting the county residences will be using a cart system before the end of 2026 for recyclable material pickup. Again, this is the producers who will be driving this on their schedule and timeline. This morning, Solid Waste Services Committee met and decided not to put a $15 surcharge on disposing of mattresses at any of our waste sites. Mattresses and box springs are now being sent off site for recycling. They are not being put into the Riverston landfill. Each piece costs us about $23 to get recycled, between the fee paid to the recycler for handling and the transportation to their facility, which is near London. You would still pay a minimum of $10 to access the site. The $10 will allow you to dispose of about 137 pounds of waste for the minimum fee. And unless you've left your mattress and box spring out in the rain for several months, it should still be under the 137 pounds. And that's all I've got for you. I'd be happy to take questions on anything except social services.
Thanks, Steve. Any questions for Steve from council? Councilor Rankin?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lennox. The $10 fee that you have to pay if you go to the landfill site, is that even if you're taking something that might be picked up at the roadside?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We don't want you to take it. We're already paying Waste Management to drive by your residence. We want them to pick it up. We don't want you taking it there. We're already paying them. Because if you take it to a transfer station, like we're close to Riverston, obviously, but if you take it to a transfer station in Bellwood, we've got to move it up to Riverston, and that's just costing us.
Any other questions for Steve? Okay. Like question, can I see it?
Is it just because I wouldn't take questions on social services?
Probably. Okay. We'll move on to presentations. We have some presentations with regard to the Arthur Waste and Sanitary Systems technical update. So welcome, Dustin. You and Tammy are going to tag team this to some extent.
I come up. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight to this presentation. What it is it's going to be an update to the technical master servicing plan that was done years ago for Arthur. But before we dive in, I just wanted to take a second and thank Mayor, Council, staff, everybody for your continued faith in Triton. We have done a lot of work with you over the years, and it has been a great relationship. And I just really have enjoyed it. So moving on to the purposes of this study, what we've done is we've reviewed all the updated growth and development expectations all around the community of Arthur. And once you know the growth, then you can look at the expected impact of that growth on your services. Specifically in the context of this, we're talking about wastewater and water, so drinking water. And then, so now that we figure out the growth and those expectations, we can then assess water supply, storage, distribution, sanitary infrastructure, so that's sewers in the ground, and we take a sort of a cursory look at your wastewater treatment capacity as well. And once we've sort of established what those needs are, we can put together some high-level cost estimates and then some sort of recommended actions and next steps for council. So back in 2023, as you may remember, you had a growth management action plan prepared. And that growth management action plan was prepared based off of county growth projections, different policies that you have, and the various growth that they predicted is sort of presented here by, so it was in 2023, so 2024, they predicted the population in Arthur was going to be about 3,300. And then all the way out to about 2051, we'd have a population of about 4,800. But if we look at the growth around Arthur a little bit differently, if we look at all the land that you have within your current boundary, and then we sort of assess if those lands were to develop to their fullest capacity or to our best estimate of their capacity. And then we look at the service population at that point. Now, we can't say exactly when the years are that this is going to happen, but for the purposes of this study, what we've done is we've tried to align it with the various years that were presented in the Growth Management Action Plan. And that allowed us to make sure that we were aligning the targets that the action plan put forth. So density targets and occupancy targets. And what I mean by that is when you're looking at a density within a green field, you're going to want a certain number of units per hectare, and those are targets that the county and the Growth Management Action Plan has put out. And then you have expected density of people in each house, and so then you use that to predict the service population. So what you see on your screen right now is what we call stage 1, and so this is where we've slotted it right now is 2025 to 2031. And the sort of orangish colored areas are what I would call residential developments. And that's sort of all we've got shown within stage 1. Most of these developments are either have a draft plan in or have already started construction. And then you'll also notice the sort of brown and gray through your downtown core. And what we've done there is we've allowed for a 20% intensification. And so this is where you expect that some of these lots that are larger, particularly those that are fronting onto Smith Street, you know, they may get another unit in the backyard, they may tear them down and build a fourplex, whatever the case is. And so we've allowed for a 20% intensification through sort of that area. And we do that year over year. So if we move on to stage 2, this is 2031 to 2041, we then see the other development areas coming in. There's quite a few shown there. If you kind of go back and forth, you can tell which ones have now come in. And also, if you're looking at the map closely, either if you're reviewing the report or what's on the slides here, the nomenclature of each development tells you what stage it's in. So if it's R1, it's within stage 1, and so on and so forth. As you can see here, the ones that have really been added that are standing out is the big red up by Macaulay and Wells Street. Now, those are the unopened right-of-ways. That's sort of a development area up there. And then the sort of purple, which is a mixed use, meaning it's got some commercial aspects and it's got some residential aspects. If we move on to stage 3, not a lot has been added other than the other half of what I would call the sort of rail trail Macaulay area, the industrial land up there. Now, what we've done here is everything that we bring in is zoned as it is. So those areas right there are zoned industrial right now. And so that's what we've sort of done. And that's how we've predicted the expected use in that land. And then moving on to stage 4, now we've got the rest of what I would call the build-up area within Arthur. And a lot of these lands are still designated as future development. And so that's sort of the way we've done it. We've made some high-level estimates on the expected occupancy of those lands based off of the targets that were set forth in the Growth Management Action Plan. So the key difference here is that as we move forward in this study, we took the expected populations or uses that I've just sort of described and came up with new equivalent populations. And so the reason I'm saying equivalent populations is for the industrial or commercial areas, you want to make sure that you don't miss the sewage or water needs of those areas. But you also, you don't have a hard number on that. So what we do is we convert the expected water usage of those areas into what an equivalent person would use in that whole area. So I won't bore you with the math of that, but this is where we end up here now. And so in this next sort of slide here, you'll see that there is a stark difference between what the Growth Management Action Plan had originally put forward in the expected growth and what we have sort of predicted based off of the full occupancy of those lands. So here we go. The key difference that you'll see right now is in stage 3. That's 2051. We had predicted 8,760 people based off of full development of the lands within those stages. And the Growth Management Action Plan had predicted about 4,800. So this slide does a little bit better job of explaining the difference. What the takeaway is that there's about 7,000 more people, or almost 8,000 more people predicted based off full occupancy of those lands. And obviously what that means for you is a lot more infrastructure needs and a lot more things to consider. And that's not to say that this is going to happen. This is to say, is this what this will look like if it does happen? And so it's up to you as council to sort of, be aware of this. And so here's just this really shows you the stark difference. The Growth Management Action Plan obviously didn't go beyond 2051. And what we've done is we've gone sort of to 2051 and then we've projected out, and I would almost say 2061 is somewhat arbitrary, but this is as far out as it could go if you developed all those lands. It'd be about 12,530 people. So now that we've got these numbers to look at the expected impact, now we need to look at how it's going to impact these systems. Now, before you assess the impact, you got to know what you're dealing with. So the existing water system, Arthur is a single pressure zone, meaning every house and every business in town is operating off of the same pressure system. There's no booster stations. The water towers are what maintain your pressure, and they're all operating at the same operation level. That'll come into play in a little bit later. Your supply. So you have 3 groundwater wells. Now, forgive me if I'm telling you things you already know, but I'll go over it quick. You've got 3 groundwater wells. You've got 2 in well house 8. So you've got 8A and 8B, and that's out on Jones Baseline. And then you've got well 7, which is in 7B technically, and is on the end of Wells Street there. And then you've got 2 storage facilities. You've got the spheroid tower, which everybody sees from the highway, and then you've got the multi-leg, which is on the corner of Charles and Leonard. Spheroid was built in 1967, and the multi-leg was 1932. So multi-leg's getting pretty old. So now that we've sort of looked at your system as it is, it's time to start looking into the future. Your current firm capacity, and what firm capacity means is when you're assessing how much you can deliver water to your residents or to your businesses, to your users, you want to make sure that under the worst case scenario, everybody has access to drinking water and there's access to water for firefighting. And so what you do is you discount one of the wells to make sure that you've got that level of safety. You've got that redundancy. You need it. And it's actually a ministry mandated way to calculate things. So the way that we calculate the firm capacity in Arthur brings us to a firm capacity of 2,255 meters cubed a day. Doesn't mean a lot, just saying that like this, but that's what you have. And then we can look at what your historic demand is. We do this every year through reserve capacity calculations. You guys get that in council. And your historic demand over the last 3 years has been about 1,514 meters cubed, leaving you 741 meters cubed for to give to businesses or to future developments. So now if we look at this in terms of the growth that we've sort of predicted and the stages, in stage 1, we're predicting a maximum day demand of 1,759. So we're still within that existing firm capacity, but we're getting pretty close. And then as it goes beyond into stage 2, now we've surpassed our existing firm capacity. Now we kind of knew this was coming. And so that's why we initiated the municipal class EA for the new well or for the water system. And that municipal class EA is nearing completion. And within that, we have established a new source that is very likely to be a viable, good source of 2,333 meters cubed. And so that will bring our new firm capacity to 4,216. And that's the red line at the top. And so you can see if we push all the way out, looks like we've got enough water to about the end of stage 4. So that's a lot of water. That's good. Because there's absolutely nothing wrong with having more water, particularly if you're trying to deal with water quality issues in some of your older wells. This will help dilute that. And so this is always a good thing. And redundancy is always a good thing. If you, for example, had to take well 8, if there was something wrong with well 8, well house, and you have this other well house on now, you've got lots of supply. So moving on to storage, we've got the spheroid, the multi-leg. It's interesting, you know, when you look at the spheroid and you look at the multi-leg, I don't know if you can really tell how different they are in size, but they're quite different in size. The spheroid is huge in comparison to the multi-leg. But nonetheless, and the existing condition, even under stage 1, our existing storage is enough. But as we move into stage 2, sort of starting in 2031, we are now deficit from a storage perspective. And so then at that point, we got to start thinking about how are we going to maintain water stored for firefighting and maintaining pressure throughout town. And what we've kind of come to decide, or what we're looking at right now within the EA, is building another new tower. Now, as we look at Arthur, as it grows out, as you head out of town in a lot of directions, it actually goes uphill a little bit. And when you go uphill, your topography comes up, your water pressure goes down, because the difference between where your water level is in your tower and where the house is becomes less. And so that difference creates less water pressure. And so what we will need to do in the future as Arthur grows to that full amount is probably increase the pressure in town. And we can't increase the pressure in town under the current water towers because they're already operating at their max capacity. So what we can do is when we build a new tower within stage 2 or before stage 2, just before, we can design it so that the water level within it leaves room to increase in the future. You won't use it now, but then in the future, you could raise that and increase the pressure in the whole town and in the future development areas, bringing everybody into a nice, good, comfortable operating condition. So that's why if you're looking at your slide, it says new tower 1, a partial volume. That's what I mean. We're not going to use the full scope of that new tower. You could at this point decommission the multi-leg. You've got 2 towers on the system, which is great. Having a 2-tower system gives you operational flexibility. It allows you to take a tower offline for cleaning, flushing, maintenance. It gives you that redundancy. A 2-tower system is very good. Not a lot of municipalities this size have that luxury, but you guys already have that set up, and we can continue planning in that way for that operation. Moving into stage 3, 2041. There's not a lot of changes needed in terms of your vertical infrastructure or your water storage. So no changes there. And then moving into stage 4, we start to push it in terms of your storage capacity. And coincidentally, the spheroid should be reaching the end of its service life. And so then at that point, you could decommission the spheroid and build another new water tower that would be taller than the spheroid. And then you could use the full capacity of that tower that we built in 2031, roughly. And then now the whole pressure in all of town has gone up, not by an obscene amount, but a comfortable amount. And now all the lands in town and future development areas have good pressure. And again, the goal here is to maintain redundancy and achieve, the ministry guidelines as it relates to storage requirements. So moving on to your water system and the distribution of your water. So currently you've got 21 kilometers of water main, 1,340 service connections. That includes businesses. You've got main trunks ranging from sizes of 250 to 300. Those are pretty big. Those are good. They service you from your wells, from your towers, through your main corridors. In terms of the condition of your water main, you've got a real mix. You've got some PVC, sort of modern PVC. You've got some older technology PVC, which we call thin-walled PVC. It does present some issues. We've got ductile iron. We've got cast iron. So all the older stuff, the cast iron, the thin-walled PVC, anytime you're rebuilding a road, replace that water main. You got to count on it. In terms of what your available fire flow, so there is certainly desirable fire flows that you want to make sure that is available out at the hydrants. And in general, you're in very good shape. It's hard to see maybe from your screen. I guess you can, if you're looking at your screen, it's easy. There's a lot of blue dots. That's great. You don't want to see a lot of red dots, and we don't have a lot of red dots. So that's good. So that's looking at the future water distribution now. So in stage 1, we've got to build some water main to service the developments that are in stage 1. I've circled in red there on Draper. That's the only one for stage 1. Stage 2, we've got a lot of water main to extend up Wells Street, Macaulay Street, Eliza Street, sort of north quadrant. Moving into stage 3. Stage 3 is a bit of a boring stage. There's not a lot going on in terms of infrastructure needs. So nothing needed there. And then moving on to stage 4, we have a ton of work to do out on 109. Ton. That'll be some big undertakings there. And then, as I had said, anytime you're doing a road reconstruction or anything, make sure you replace that old cast iron and that thin-walled PVC. I've circled the last little bits left in town in yellow there. So now that we've sort of established what we need to do or what we could do, we've put some high-level cost estimates to it. Vertical infrastructure, and what I mean by that is water towers and supply wells, anything that goes up and down, not horizontally. We're looking at up to $16.5 million worth of work to do there. From a horizontal infrastructure perspective, replacements, what I've done here is listed all the roads that have the old water main, and sort of come up with some high-level cost estimates. And you'll see these numbers again, probably when you see the rate study in a little bit. And that number brings us to about 5.5 million. And then moving on to the extensions and upgrades that are needed to align with the stages, we get to about over 12 million. And these things are all mutually exclusive. So the stage 1 isn't a summary of the others. These are all independent of each other. So moving on to wastewater. Taking a look at your current infrastructure, your wastewater treatment plant right now is rated for 1,860 cubes a day of treatment. And you've got the wastewater treatment plant down there at the end of Preston, and then your effluent lagoons, the other end of town there. Your current reserve capacity, meaning this is how much room you have left, is 519 cubes per day. We've got a couple of pumping stations in town here. We've got the Frederick one down on Frederick and Francis Street there. And then the Wells Street sewage pumping station. And those both convey sewage to the sewage treatment plant. Wells Street, not directly. Anyway, infrastructure, you've got about the same amount of water main, a little bit less, 19.1 kilometers of sewer, varying sizes. And then what's our biggest servicing constraint? It's going to be the Conestoga River. So the Conestoga River has a very limited capacity to accept effluent. So what happens right now is your wastewater treatment plant treats sewage all year long. And then for the summer months, it pumps it up to the lagoons and holds it. And then in the winter months, when the flow in the creek is high enough, it discharges. And what this really means is, effluent from your wastewater treatment plant is good. It's good quality. I mean, I wouldn't drink it, but it's good quality. And its impact is very minor. If it should be none on the creek. But all these creeks have a very limited capacity or a set capacity of what they can take, whether that be, really high quality effluent or, not. It doesn't matter. There is a certain capacity that these things have. So if we look at where we're going to end up in terms of our sanitary reserve capacity, we can predict the expected sewage production of all the developments that we've talked about or shown. Stage 1, we're looking at 1,627, stage 2, 2,500, all the way out to stage 4, we're looking at about 4,500 to 4,600 meters cubed a day. And how does that relate to our capacity? So our existing wastewater treatment plant, we have a capacity of 1,860, like I said. Now it's important to remember, you don't want your plant operating at 100% capacity. Because if you get a high flow condition for whatever reason, you get the 100-year event, something happens, you're going to be in a surcharge condition. You don't really want to play that close to the line. So, my recommendation is always, if you're at 75%, this is when you really need to start looking at what's next. Or do you want to keep going? And so right now we are pushing that 75%. So it's time to sort of start looking at what's next. Thankfully, I'm not sure exactly when the last EA was done for the wastewater treatment plant, but it established that we could get 2,300 meters cubed of treatment. And so putting that onto the chart definitely buys us some more time. But we will be pushing 75% capacity of phase 2 as early as 2032, based off of the current sort of stages that we've outlined in this study. So what do we do after stage 2? What do we do after phase 2? This is where we've got to start looking at, we've got to make a decision. Do we want to keep growing? Do we want to service this? And if we do, then, we need to look at what the options are. First step would be an assumed capacity study, an updated assumed capacity study of the Conestoga River. And you start looking at what your options are. And then, just to put it out there, the options are, there's a lot, but one of them could be a phase 3 of your wastewater treatment plant, and another one could be a new wastewater treatment plant somewhere else. The discharges to a different area, different creek. These are all things that you would need to look at and consider. Moving on to the sanitary collection system. Stage 1, we've sort of followed the same, obviously, servicing alignments. So stage 1, Anderson, Farrell Lane, Draper Street. That's the only thing going on in stage 1. Stage 2, Wells Street, Macaulay. Those are the streets that we sort of similar to the water main. Stage 3, again, no major extensions required. And then moving on to stage 4, we've got a pile of work to do out on 109. The details of all these different projects are in the study if you're curious. And then again, sort of very similar to what we did with the water, we looked at the potential costs of these various things and have put some numbers to it. The big one that's not on there is your phase 3 or your next stage of your wastewater treatment. If you were to decide to go to a phase 3, there's big numbers there. We're talking in the tens of millions of dollars to get to the treatment that you'll probably need. Good examples would be looking at other communities around that have built new wastewater treatment plants and see what that has cost. And that will give you an idea. So I haven't even included that in this. What I have included is sort of a high level estimate for an assimilative capacity study, because that's the first step. If you decide that you want to move and you want to move forward with this, and you're going to want to see servicing beyond stage 1, stage 2, the first step, in my opinion, is a assimilative capacity study to see where you can take it, where you can put it. And then you would move on to municipal class EA, or whatever system exists at the time. There's changes coming to the municipal class EA process. Moving on to your replacements. These are, again, what we've done here is we've just listed all the same roads that were in the water. And the reason for this is sanitary sewer is different than water main, particularly the old stuff. Sometimes you send a camera down there and it looks great. There is no reason to replace it. It would be a waste of money. So you always, when you're going to rebuild a road, run a camera down and see the condition. Make sure it's not leaking, make sure it's not deformed, make sure it's not cracked. And if it's not, especially if it's deep, because the construction costs get high, you can leave it. But I think it's best to plan to have that budgeted. So we've included all the same roads here. And then similar to the water, all the extensions and upgrades that we've talked about on the previous slide are listed here. So, sort of bringing it all together, what are our recommendations? Complete the water EA that's already underway. I think that's kind of a no-brainer. Decommission the multi-leg once a new Tower 1 is operational. And I sort of say this at your discretion. There's nothing wrong with the multi-leg. There's no imminent report that says, hey, you got to take it down. But it's not really serving you at that point after you get the second new tower up. And then, so once you've constructed another new tower, once you get into stage 4, you'll need to then build another new tower, as we had talked about. And then at that point, you can decommission the spheroid. I really would expect the spheroid will be at the end of its service life by that time. And as I had said, replace all the aging water mains during any road reconstruction and extend all the trunk mains as needed to service the developments. And by no means am I saying that this is all at the township's, something the township needs to do. This is all, these are the trunk mains are what would be needed to serve the developments. So moving on to the sanitary system, get on to phase 2. Like I sort of pointed out, that will serve part of stage 2. So phase 2 will serve part of stage 2. I would recommend we move on to a new assimilative capacity study of the Conestoga, and then start planning for how we're going to serve beyond stage sort of 1.5. And all these other things, it's important. It's really important to remember that the water system and the sanitary system, although not directly connected, are connected. So there's no point in having a ton of water capacity and no sewage capacity. You need, if you're going to do both, you've got to sort of make them align. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind. And so again, if you're not going to sort of expand your servicing capacity for your wastewater treatment plant, then there's absolutely no point in extending the sewers and force mains as needed to service those areas, because they're not going to be able to develop. Another thing that we would recommend is, before you do any road reconstruction, again, inspect those sewers, see what they look like. And also, look at this document and make sure that this sewer that you're replacing or you're building a road is not downstream of a big development area that may or may not need to be upsized to service that development while you're doing your road reconstruction. There's nothing worse than rebuilding a road and then 5 years later ripping it up to put in new sewer right underneath it. And so, yeah, that's basically it. Thank you for your time, and any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And if you think of things later, you can reach out to Tammy and she'll put you in touch.
Any questions for Dustin? Mr. Rankin?
Through you, Mayor Lennox. I was just wondering, when you buy an item at a grocery store, it has a best before date on it, but it doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong with it by that date. So I'm just wondering with the towers for their end of life, if they can be utilized after that as well. I know you wanted to replace them and get the next stage going, but I'm just wondering, can they be used after that safely?
Absolutely, with the proper maintenance. So the multi-leg, like I said, it doesn't have any imminent report that has said it needs to come down tomorrow. The same with the spheroid. We do have a bit of a laundry list of work that's needed at the spheroid to keep it going, but you do this maintenance and it'll keep going. It'll keep going. The only issue you'll face when it comes to the storage is a shortfall in the size. And there's nothing you can do about the size, but you could supplement it. You build another tower and supplement it. When you're looking at water towers, it's a little bit interesting. Some of the most expensive part of a water tower isn't the actual tank, it's the pedestal. It's everything else. And so there's a better return on a larger tank. And so if you build a tank, you don't build it for the 25-year horizon, you build it way out because it's more efficient that way. So I answered your question in a very long way, I think.
Thank you. The spheroid tower is a newer one than the multi-leg one. And when you're replacing them, will they be replaced with a spheroid rather than a multi-leg one?
I mean, that's to be decided. You would assess all the options at that time. Multi-legs are typicipally limited in their size, whereas a pedestal type similar to the spheroid. The spheroid type itself with that very narrow pedestal has become less popular. Everybody's moving into the more concrete pedestals that go up. So you're sort of typical water main you see when you drive through Guelph or wherever. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Dustin? I got a couple for you, Dustin. I've been around now in this table for a while, and I remember the first master servicing plan I saw for Arthur included 2 water towers. Then an update included only 1. And now we're back to 2. So I'm having a little trouble understanding how that logic has evolved.
Yeah, so the last one we did, which was in 2020, right? We didn't use the full development areas. We followed the growth management action plans in terms of population. And so when you look at that one chart I had that shows that stark difference between the 2 numbers, there just wasn't a need for a second tower if you only consider growth under that sort of much less rate. And so then unfortunately, I didn't do the first one, but I know from the last one, we followed the growth managed action plan. And then I think this paints, I don't want to say a more realistic picture, but I want to say a more conservative picture. The issue with following a growth management action plan to the letter of the law is policy can change quickly, but it's really hard to change infrastructure that quickly, right? So I think it's good to be aware, if nothing else, aware of what will happen if these happen.
So just following up on that a little bit, assuming that we would put 1 new tower in and continue to use the spheroid, which makes sense from my perspective. And then a decision were to happen to not extend the sewage treatment capacity out to what you're projecting here. Would that then be adequate to serve the community's needs from a 1 tower perspective when the spheroid becomes obsolete?
Yeah, you could probably size it accordingly. We haven't got into that detail of it, but you could, in theory, if you decided to not, put a stop basically to development, you absolutely could size that tower, the new tower, accordingly. Sort of as I talked about, the operational difficulties that you face with a single tower are, they're not small. They are there, particularly in a system such as Arthur's. because it's not set up to sustain pressure in the system without a tower. So when that tower, if you were to get rid of the spheroid and the multi-leg and have one tower, and then let's say that tower has to come down, which it not come down, sorry, has to be taken offline for maintenance, which they do. During that time that it's in maintenance, you would be discharging water to waste, just straight into the creek while that's happening. Otherwise, your system either gets overpressurized or underpressurized. And so you use this pressure relief valve system that allows you to sustain that pressure. I think you just went through this with Mount Forest a little bit.
Okay. Moving on a little bit to the new proposed well that the EA is being conducted to address. The way I'm looking at the plan you've presented, this is what's required to service the growth. There really is nothing in this that would mean that we couldn't bring that well on sooner and let it be part of the supply
Absolutely.
to help us alleviate potentially some water quality issues.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And maybe can you comment on that from?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are there. So the new well is predicted to be a very high producing well at 2,333 cubes a day versus, your other existing wells. This will be more than any of them. And so just even from a dilution standpoint, because the water coming out of this new well would be expected to be much higher quality in terms of, what's the word?
Aesthetics.
Aesthetics. Yes. Thank you. So yes, it would certainly help with that. And then it would also allow you to potentially take a well down for a long period of time and implement any systems you may need to deal with that aesthetic issues. So you want to do iron sequestering or something like that, trying to do that and keep that well online, that will be a slog. That will be costly. Whereas if you can say, we can shut that well down for a year and we can rely on this new well and one of the other wells and do major renovations, you have that flexibility.
So would that aid potentially treating those wells to reduce those negative things like the iron and manganese issues?
Yeah. That's what I mean. You could implement treatment to deal with those aesthetic issues currently being experienced. Yeah. But then even like a bit of dilution from that new well will help. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, Councillor Rankin?
Thank you. I'm not sure to whom to direct this, but if you have an industry that comes into the area that is going to require an extreme amount of water that would put us over the 75%, would that industry be denied at that time, or would you progress into the next stage and say put up another tower to be able to have the industry in the area?
Yeah.
Through you, Mayor Lennox. So currently our policy doesn't allow wet industry to come, or if it does, it has to be council approval on it. And at that time, we would do a detailed review of the impacts of the high water usage on our existing infrastructure.
Okay. Any other questions? I don't think I have anything further, so thanks, Dustin.
Thank you.
And so you've got a report with regard to this, Tammy. Do you have anything else you wanted to highlight with regard to that report?
Through you, Mayor Lennox. So I think Dustin did a fantastic job highlighting in his presentation. My report's just to receive the updated study and to be able to post it to the website for future developments, to be able to see the challenges in Arthur and what they need to overcome.
Thank you. So we have a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report INF 2025-19, being a report on the Arthur Master Servicing Technical Update, and the council directs staff to post the Arthur Master Servicing Technical Update report on the township website. Okay, I got a mover and a seconder, Councillor McCabe and Councillor Rankin. Thank you. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll move on to our next presentation. We have Derek and John back to talk to us about wastewater rates and financial plan. So do you guys need to share screen or have a presentation that you need to deal with today?
Yes, I have a presentation. I can share my screen. Find out which one it is. Okie dokie. Okay, I don't know if I'm sharing my screen or not.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay, and it's the wastewater rate review screen.
So whenever you're
Looks
ready,
like
go
it is.
ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Again, I'm John Murphy. I'm here with Derek Alley from DFA to present some scenarios for your wastewater rate approval. On October 29th, council met to discuss the water wastewater rates. Council did approve the water rate, an increase of 2%. Council, however, deferred the wastewater rate discussion until a later date. So at the October 29th council meeting, an annual 8% wastewater rate increase was presented. And now this wastewater rate increase of 8% was mainly due to the additional capital asset replacement requirements that was identified in your 2025 State of Infrastructure report. On average, that was approximately an additional $2.3 million funding provision that was required. Now, the additional asset replacement requirement was based on the life cycle cost analysis contained in your State of Infrastructure report. That additional requirement is needed to ensure that sufficient funds are provided to address your wastewater life cycle needs over the forecast period. Now, these amounts were adjusted downward to reflect any asset replacement provision from your 10-year capital budget as presented. Now, these amounts were averaged over the 10-year period to ensure you didn't have any spikes in the rates over that forecast period. Now, because the 8% was considered quite excessive, we presented two additional scenarios in the October 29th meeting. One was to look at a 5% increase, and one was to look at a 4% increase. And we were able to do that because we phased in that additional asset replacement requirement over the 10-year period. So instead of $2 million per year, we were looking at increasing that each year so that by the 2035, you would have achieved the $2.3 million funding provision. However, what that did, it created what we call a funding gap, a wastewater funding gap. So this table shows the different scenarios. The 8% scenario would have fully funded your additional asset replacement requirement. The alternative scenarios, which phased in that amount, which allowed for 4% and 5% rate increase options. You can see that in this table, the bottom line in that top table shows the annual funding gap. So at the far right, you can see the total column, and you can see the 9.9 or $10 million funding gap over that 10-year period. So with that said, obviously there is, I guess, an incentive for council to pursue additional funding from senior levels of government in regards to addressing your asset replacement funding gap. So as I said, in the October 29th meeting, we presented two alternative funding strategies. One was a 5% increase in your wastewater rates over the forecast period, and one was a 4% increase each year over the forecast period. Now, in this presentation, we're presenting a third option, which is a 3.75 rate increase in your wastewater rates over the forecast period. Now, I'm going to go through the three options in regards to the funding scenarios. And after that, I'll be talking about the reserve balances, which we had discussed at the October 29th meeting. So this is the phase-in option number one, which shows a 5% increase annually in your wastewater rates. This slide presents the phase-in option number two, which is a 4% increase. And this slide shows the additional phased-in option, which is a 3.75% increase. Now, when we talked at the October 29th meeting, we discussed the reserve balances. And in that discussion, I think it was Mr. Mayor, you indicated that maybe the reserve should be combined, because we looked at a 3 to 5% reserve balance at the end of the forecast period that we were striving for. So when we look at that, and I'm to look at that, what slide I'm on here. So we looked at combining the reserve balances to achieve that 3% target, which allowed us to reduce the wastewater rate option. Now, when we look at the combination of the water and wastewater reserves, so what we're going to have is, when you approve the 2% water rate increase, at the end of the 10-year forecast period, the water reserve balance as a percent of the water future projected replacement value of your infrastructure was 5%, and that was the high end of the target reserve balance. Now, one thing council should know is that when you combine the reserves for purposes of this exercise, if you have a depleted wastewater reserve and you're drawing money or using money from the water reserve to fund wastewater replacement capital infrastructure needs, then eventually those monies will have to get repaid from the wastewater back to the water, because in essence it is an internal loan, because they are two separate funding systems. So this slide here presents the projected reserve balances for water, wastewater, and a combination of the two reserve balances. So you can see the in the far right column, you can see in 2035, the bottom of each of these tables shows the percent of the reserve balance as a percentage of the future replacement value of the infrastructure. So water, you're at 5%, which is the high end of the target level of reserve balances. Wastewater is 3.9%. When you combine the two reserve balances as a percentage of the water and wastewater replacement value, you're at 4.4%. So this is the 5%, or the option one phase-in option. So 5%, you're in a healthy reserve fund balance at the end of the forecast period. The 4% rate option, again, water is at 5%. Wastewater is now 2.1% of the future replacement value of wastewater, but when combined, it's 3.4%. So still healthy. Now, the additional option of 3.75% rate increase for wastewater, again, water 5%. Wastewater is now 1.6% of the future replacement values, but when combined, you're at 3.1% of the future replacement value of water and wastewater, which you're still within that target area. So when in a summary, what we've got is the combined reserves, option one, 5% increase gives you a 4.4% reserve balance. The 4% rate increase, 3.4%, the 3.75% increase, 3.1%. So all options provide you adequate reserves at the end of the forecast period, which ensures that your water and wastewater system is in a strong financial position to address asset replacement needs beyond the 2035. So when we look at the impact on a residential customer for these three options, the top table shows when you combine the water rate increase of 2% and the wastewater rate increase of 5%, the overall impact on the customer is 3.68%. And this is a residential customer. When you look at the 4% or the 2% water rate increase and the 4% wastewater rate increase, you're looking at a 3.12 increase or impact on the residential water wastewater customer. Now, when you look at the third option, which is a 3.75% wastewater rate increase when combined with the 2% water increase, a residential customer will see a 2.98% increase in their water wastewater bill. So when we look at the total cost of water and wastewater on a residential customer. In this case, we assumed 200 cubic meters per year because the township charges a flat fee for their water, wastewater. Some municipalities have a volumetric fee. So a typical residential customer would consume approximately 200 cubic meters per year. So when you look at these these lists of comparable municipalities, the township, all options um, fall below the average cost of water and wastewater for these comparable municipalities. I think there's only 2 municipalities in this list that fall below the cost of water and wastewater for a customer in the township. And I think that's the end of my presentation, shorter than the last one.
Okay. Thanks, John. Any questions from council for John at this point? John, could you go back to a slide? I forget which one it was. You were looking at the 3 options and the end reserve impact.
Right here is just so we have the 3 slides which show the reserve balances, and
No,
here
you had one after this that showed all 3.
okay,
Yes.
here's the summary page right here.
Yep, the summary page. So if I'm reading this correctly, from options 1 to options 3, the amount of difference in the end state reserves would go from 9.9 million to 13.8 million. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, 13.8 would be the 5% option, 10.6 would be the 4% option, and 9.9 million would be the 3.75% option. And those are the combined water and wastewater reserves.
Right. So could you also comment on the using the 8% compounding amount, what the end state of the reserve would look like with it?
I don't have that in my hand, but it would probably be 15, 16 million, because the water reserve would stay at 7, and I'd have to pull up my Excel sheet. But you're probably looking at least $2 to $3 million more in reserve balance over the 13.8. So I'd say you'd be 15 to 16 million.
Okay. So the 8% rate increase is sort of the ideal state we'd
That's
like
the
to shoot.
ideal, to be able to fully fund the additional asset replacement provision based on your 2025 State of Infrastructure report.
Right. So let's say it's 16 million just for round
Yep.
figures. And if we go to the option 2, which is the 4% increase, we're at 10.6 million. So the difference would be $5.4 million as the end state. Is that, give or take?
Yes. Yeah.
So what that would mean is that we would need to get other levels of government to pony up $5.4 million for a major capital project. And that would bring us into that desirable end state that we want to get to.
Ideally, yes.
If we were to implement option 2 today.
Yes. All else being equal, if the capital replacement needs unfolded as presented, yes.
Okay. So I mean, we somewhat discarded the idea of the 8% already, but we do still recognize that that's the desirable end state that we'd like to get to make our system stable from a financial perspective. But I guess
Yes.
what I'm trying to get at is that our community has been growing, and I'm thinking of the Arthur wastewater treatment plant upgrade in particular. Our community has been growing at a rapid rate, more rapid than we originally anticipated, to the point where we need to invest more capital dollars today to accommodate that growth. But at the same time, we haven't had the same number of years to collect some reserves to help offset the amount that the existing ratepayers should contribute to that project. And that's where provincial grants come in my perspective. And I think that we need to make sure that our provincial partners understand that if them not continuing to fund that project, what impact that should have on our ratepayers. And I think we should be demanding that as a community that's been doing more than our share in terms of accommodating housing growth, that it's only reasonable that we should get share in the capital grants for wastewater services as well, like some of our larger counterparts do on an annual basis based on their community growth, which we have no access to. So to implement the 8% to me is asking an unfair burden, placing an unfair burden on our ratepayers. I could live with the sort of the middle of the road, the 4% thing, but I think we also need to take that message to our provincial counterparts and say, hey, look, it's not fair for us to ask our residents to pay 4% more for their wastewater because we're growing at a rate that serves provincial needs more than it serves local needs. And so I think it would be a mistake for us to implement the full 8%, but I could support implementing something less and continuing to share that message with our provincial counterparts. And that would still potentially get us to the end state that we want to be at with a stable, well-financed system for the future. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Hearn?
It was just so well said. I have nothing to say. Sorry. It's a compliment, Mayor Lennox.
Well, thank you. Councilor McCabe?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lennox, it was well said. So can we share this with them and share the Dustin Lytle reports to them as well and show them like, here are the hard numbers, what we're facing for the future, and here's where we need help with, and our ratepayers need help with to make this happen.
That's why I asked for some of this.
Okay, good. Good.
To be blunt.
Hopefully they read it.
Well, I think we've got to share the message that this is what it's going to take to keep from having to force our ratepayers to pay 8% every year more. That's not reasonable.
No, and like you said, sorry, through you, like we're doing our share, and I think we're ahead of more municipalities or even regions, and not just Wellington North. I think County of Wellington as a whole as well. And we need, like the senior levels of government to come to the table as well with this. And I know we've been saying that for years, but it's got to happen.
Well, I think we need to share the message. Do they want us to want us to make an unfair burden on our existing ratepayers? I'm not prepared to do that. And I don't think we should be prepared to support growth at a faster pace than we can afford. Okay, so I guess I'm going to let you off the hook, John, for now.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, once council adopts the rate increase, I will be preparing a wastewater financial plan similar to the water financial plan that was provided to you. I don't know if it's been presented yet, but I can assure the messaging that you've just indicated will be reflected in that wastewater financial plan that will be provided to you and you can forward to the province.
Okay. Is Jerry with us? Can you stop screen sharing, John, please?
Oh, sorry.
Jerry, did you have anything more you want to add at this point?
To you, Mayor Lennox. At this point now, I think you've covered all the points, and John as well has done wonderful work with the presentation so far.
Okay, thank you. And so we got two recommendations, or no, just one recommendation here. The Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North received report TR 2025-11 being a report on the Township of Wellington North's wastewater rate study, and the council provide direction on the preferred phase-in wastewater rate increase scenario for the years 2026 to 2031. So first, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, and then we better have some discussion around the preferred phase-in. Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Hearn. Discussion around what option we wish to pursue.
I wouldn't mind going for option 2. I think option 1 is a bit too much, and then option 3 is a little too less. We still have to plan and be financially strong in the future, and if we can do the use option 2 and get our provincial counterparts to come to the table. I think that's the route I would support.
Okay. Councillor Rankin?
I will agree with that. I was going for the middle of the road as well. I don't always think the less is the best, so.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree. That's where I was headed prior to your wonderful speech there, Mayor Lennox, but yeah.
Sorry, I don't have any cash. Okay, so I think we have a consensus, Jerry, around the 4% rate increase, which when blended with the 2% for water will be close to the 3 overall impact on the ratepayers. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. Any other discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right. And thank you, John and Derek, for persevering through this.
Thank you.
All right. We don't have any questions on agenda items tonight.
There were no questions on agenda items registered.
Okay, thank you. So we'll deal with minutes then from previous meetings. We have a recommendation that the minutes of the special meeting of council held on October 29th, 2025, and the regular meeting of council held on November 3rd, 2025 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Hearn. Any questions or comments on those? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Excuse me, I don't think we have any business arising from previous meetings tonight. So items identified for separate discussion, already pulled out for separate discussion is item 4A, fall traffic counts. Item 5B, due to a pecuniary interest. Item 5C, council remuneration for the future term. And that's it, I think. So we have a recommendation to deal with all the other items. And that reads as follows, that all items listed under items for consideration on the November 17th, 2025 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Hearn. Thank you. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Move on then to 4A. Fall traffic counts. We have a recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive for information INF 2025-12, being a report on fall traffic counts. Did I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Rankin, thank you, and Councillor McCabe. And open the floor for discussion. Councillor McCabe.
Just a quick question, and thank you, and through you, Mayor Lennox. Has your can we say know if the traffic on line 2 and line 4 in West Luther has increased due to the construction on County Road 109? And is there historical numbers to back that up to say yes or no?
And probably Side Road 7 should be considered as well.
Well,
Through you, Mayor Lennox. So prior to the county's bridge construction on County Road 109, we had discussions with the county engineer, and we completed some data traffic counts prior to the detour going into place. And then we also did some fall traffic counts this year, and we have noticed a severe increase of traffic on line 2. There's a slight increase on line 4.
all right, thank you very much. No surprise.
And we'll continue to monitor that through the construction period, I'm sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Rankin?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lennox. I was just wondering, the roads that had the most percentage for speeding on them, are they going to be candidates to have traffic slowing devices?
Through you, Mayor Lennox. So we're implementing a traffic calming pilot program. So those were identified during the spring traffic counts and from additional concerns from the residents that submitted traffic calming request. So we're going to implement that pilot program, and then we'll be monitoring data through that as well to see if the traffic calming measures do reduce traffic. So currently we just have the two locations on Side Road 11 and then, or sorry, concession 11 and Side Road 3 West.
Okay, thank you.
I would add Councillor Rankin too. I mean, there seems to be some activity from the province in terms of funding traffic calming measures, because other methods to deter speeding seem to have disappeared. So we'll have to wait and see what those look like. Hopefully they will come to the table with some serious dollars. But when I heard earlier this evening that $214,000 for the county of Wellington in 7 locations, I'm thinking that's not a lot of money to implement serious traffic calming. So I'm, you know, police can't be everywhere in every location, and they have many things that are putting demands on their time. I don't see how we can do this, increase the level of compliance with policing alone. We're going to need other tools. And unfortunately, changing the road environment, while it's an effective tool, is also a very expensive tool. So I think there will be some difficult decisions ahead with regard to that. Any other questions or comments on this one? All those in favor? It's carried. Move on to 5B. This is in regard to the award of the George Kirkness Drain. And there. Right page. And the recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report CLK 2025-16 award of George Kirkness Municipal Drain, and that council award a request for proposal 2025-21 George Kirkness Drain, Highway 6 crossing to Rice Construction Contracting Inc. at a project cost of $108,000, excluding applicable taxes. And further, the council award request for proposal 2025-22 George Kirkness Drain, tile drain to Dozeland Construction at a project cost of $221,368, excluding applicable taxes. And further, the council authorize the clerk or their designate to sign any necessary agreements with the successful bidders to execute this project. By Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Hearn. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. On to 5C. This is with regard to council remuneration 2027 to 2030 term. And we have a recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receives report CLK 2025-17, being report on the remuneration for members of council for 2027 to 2030, and that remuneration for the position of mayor be set at $40,000, and further that remuneration for the position of councillor be set at $25,000, and further that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the bylaw to authorize the approved remuneration effective January 1st, 2027. Could I get a mover and a second, please? Councillor McCabe and Councillor Hearn, thank you. Discussion? Councillor McCabe?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lennox. That an increase of $10,500 a year for the position of mayor. That's $42,000 increase, and that's more than what the remuneration is for 1 year right now. And the same with the councilors, an increase of $6,000 per year. It's 24 grand over 1 year, one whole term, which is more than what is paid out right now. And I just can't support something that high. And I understand comparing remunerations with the neighboring townships. And I just wondered how 40 grand for the mayor and 29 were proposed, I guess, or put together.
Okay. Brooke, do you want to talk about the process?
Through you, Mayor Lennox. So staff did do a review of local municipalities in the area, looked at the average rate of remuneration overall, and it was determined that in Wellington North, salaries were about 17% less for the mayor, about 12% less for the council. And so in looking at those rates of pay over the next several years, we were able to say if we were to close that gap at the average, it would be about $37,165 for the mayor in 2026 and $22,914 for council in 2026 dollars. So if you were to assume a CPI or a small inflationary increase, we looked at that 40,000 for the mayor and 25,000 for council, effective January 1st, 2027, as sort of being at the average and a little bit above. It really depends where council wants to see remuneration over the next several years. If you'd like to be at the average, you could look at those slightly lower rates. But we felt that this was a good starting point in terms of the discussion for the next council term.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Rankin?
Through you, Mayor Lennox. I think it's a generous offer. However, I would settle for the rate of, say, 22,000 for the councillor rather than going a little bit higher. I believe with the financial strains we may have, and we were talking about percentages for wastewater and water, I would just feel badly for taking up a higher amount. On the other hand, to stay where we are, to ask for that, I think whoever's going to be on the council for the next term, they may not agree with that, and they might deserve to at least come out for the average.
Councilor Hearn?
I completely support the staff report at 25,000. I took a harder look at these numbers and compared them per capita, per counselor, and looked at the overall cost. And at the 25,000, we still came out the cheapest. And these numbers also don't incorporate other municipalities that are not listed here. They receive per diems to attend conferences. Many of them also receive benefits. Some of them receive full benefits. Minto, OMERS, and benefits. I'm not saying that, I expect full-time, a full-time job or full-time compensation, but it is a very difficult job and it takes an awful lot out of you. And I would like to see a lot of more people recruited into this role, and not just for the counselor, your family. Having someone that grew up in the public, a child that grew up in the public school system on my first term, and classmates approached them. He didn't sign up for that. So to have a diverse council, I think we need to increase some of that compensation for it. And I also encountered even a council that had EAP. And that's something that I've struggled with. In this council role, while most people are happy, all they do is people complain all the time. And I really struggled with that this term. So I think these things need to be taken into account.
Thank you, Councilor Hearn. I think you said it well. I think it's important that we remember that what we're deciding today is not for us. This is a difficult conversation. We're, as members of council, setting pay for council. This is not for us. This is for the future term of council. And I think it's important that for the best outcome for the community, to try to do all we can within reason to make sure that we recruit the best possible people to sit on council. And while some people, may have more financial flexibility than others, I mean, if say we wanted to, a young mother was considering sitting on council, well, what about her issues with childcare? Potentially. What about other issues of caregiving for a senior partner or family member? This is not a job that is just it's somewhat voluntary, but it's not really a volunteer position. So we have to be mindful of how we're setting the pay to make it possible for the best possible people to step forward and participate in this role and make sure that they are kept whole through this process or as much as possible. Nobody is doing this for the money, clearly. But I think it's important that they be compensated in a fair manner. I don't know what the exact number is, but I think it probably, we need to be looking closely, at least at the average of our neighbors. And, you know, to your point, Councillor Her and I would be very supportive of maybe even setting a lower number if necessary and implementing some things like supporting an EAP program or things like that. Because I do think those are important. And as a member of council, you often don't have access to things like that. So, Councillor Hearn?
Yeah, that is something that I was going to suggest. I mean, it would be something that, you know, if we could incorporate that, not every counselor would need to utilize it, but it would be there, especially for a young family. And I would like to ensure that councils going forward have that diverse representation, will rely on it. Otherwise, we're just all going to be the same type of people that are on council. We don't want to see council all be acclaimed, because if they are, that means nobody wants the job. And I mean, I don't want that either.
Right. Any other discussion?
Nope.
Okay, does anybody wish to amend the recommendation?
I don't think there should be a raise at all in my book, but I don't know if that's an uphill battle for me tonight.
I mean, we have a recommendation on the floor, so either we deal with it and support it or don't, or we need to amend it.
I'll agree to it.
Nobody's jumping forward, so we'll just deal with the motion as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. All right, I think that brings us to the end of our items for consideration. Oh, any notice of motion? This evening?
Not this time.
No notice of motion. Move on to community group meeting program report. Does anybody have anything they'd like to report on tonight? Councilor McCabe.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lennox, I have an SVCA meeting that's coming up, and we've had an awful lot of discussion over the fate of conservation authorities in Ontario. I don't know if Eric has sent anything out to our clerks yet, but there's going to be some robust conversation about it on Thursday, I'm pretty sure, on which way we can go, or how we can go, or what we can do, where the province is going to land on this. With that, went to the was honored to go to Remembrance Day ceremony in Arthur, which was very well attended. So it was great to go to that. And then I attended the Wellington North Fire Services awards on Saturday at the Upper Hall in Arthur at the Legion, which was very well attended as well. So it was good week and good weekend as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor McCabe. Is there anything, you know, you brought up the changes to the Conservation Authority proposal. Is there anything that you're aware of at this stage that we as a municipality should be advocating for through this process?
Not yet, because I think everyone in the province on a CA is trying to figure out what it means, and the way forward. I suspect that's what some of our talk will be about on Thursday. Saugeen is going to, or SVCA is going to put out a response, and the responses are open until I think it's December 22nd of this year. I would encourage anyone that is in a conservation authority to write down your comments and email them in. I'm hoping once we get our I guess our comments from SVCA finalized, we will put them in, and I would hope that this council would support them, and then our other two conservation authorities as well. And I think there needs to be a strong unified voice throughout all of the conservation authorities across Ontario to say, like, you know, you got to stop, like, this can't go forward. They don't even really kind of know how they would provincially appoint people to this relatively new agency. The zones, will go down to 6 zones. And right now we would be, I shouldn't say we, but, Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority would be lumped in with Thunder Bay as it sits right now. So I mean, just the geographically, the difference between Thunder Bay to here and all points in between. I'm not sure how they came up with that. I guess boundaries, it seems fairly arbitrary, but yeah, we kind of have to go and see what, at our CA anyways, and see what we can put together for a pushback. And then hopefully support it as we go forward.
Yeah, it's not clear to me what's what this new agency will do, whether it's just strictly for the permitting side of this, and then we still have all the other activities the conservation authorities would continue to operate, or so.
Well, and just in that vein, I talked to Eric, our general manager, and I said the conservation authorities, Ontario Conservation, sorry, isn't that what they're doing right now? And he's like, yeah, it seems like an awful lot of duplication without a lot of this bang for the buck in the end of it. So I'm not sure where we're going to end up with that. So more to come for sure. But I think Councillor Hearn was going to mention something as well.
Yeah, I was just going to tag in from the GRCA's perspective. I did attend the special meeting. It must have been a week or so ago. I cannot remember, but we have struck a committee who's working really hard right now, and we are going to have a recommendation for the ERO posting at our November the 28th meeting. And the same thing, extremely large. So the GRCA watershed will go from the top of Blank, then I don't know, basically Honeywood, and go all the way
Windsor.
down to Windsor, right? So like a really, really massive area that, gosh, in Windsor, do they know where Honeywood is? I don't, you know what I mean? Like it's a world apart. So, yeah, we'll have some sort of recommendation and from the board of directors on the 28th. So hopefully then, and I hope it aligns with Saugeen so that the township can comment prior to the ERO posting December the 22nd, right before Christmas. Kind of ironic sometimes.
No coincidence there, sure. One thing I might add to that, and start thinking about it, was if this goes forward, the lack of actual local municipal input at literally the ground level will be gone. And it will be people in Toronto or somewhere appointed otherwise that probably, like you just said, Lisa, don't know where Honeywood is, don't know where, any other little spots are. So it's that doesn't look good right now. But we'll cross that river when we get to it.
Pun intended. Okay, anybody have anything else they'd like to report on? That's all right.
The only other thing is I have a chamber meeting on Wednesday and we're going to be in the new building. Okay.
Newly renovated building.
Yeah.
Councillor Rankin.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lennox. The pool committee is going to be having a fundraiser for the pool on Saturday, November the 22nd from 10 until 3, and it's a holiday home tour. So if you'd like to see some beautiful homes that are decorated and maybe get some ideas for your own, tickets are $30 and they're available from Caldwell Banker, Wynn Realty, M&M, Plumes, and the Mount Forest Greenhouse. So we're hoping for a successful day.
Great. Any others to report on? Just a reminder too that I can hardly believe it, but the Christmas parades are coming up soon. So I think we should probably plan to participate as usual. Usually the Arthur one comes first at the last Saturday in November, and usually the Mount Forest one is the first Friday night in December, whatever those dates are. No, we don't have them listed yet. Yeah, that sounds about right. 29th.
Is the Mount Forest Chamber dinner, is that on the December 6th too? I have that written down on my calendar. Is that right?
Mount Forest is
Lisa?
December 5th. Okay. We'll circulate some information about that,
Yeah.
and hopefully staff will be able to support us with getting a pickup truck ready for us to use. With that, I think we'll move on to bylaws. We have 3 to deal with this evening. And these are all dealing with, okay, 1 declaring property surplus, and then 2 dealing with the winter maintenance contracts. So I have a recommendation on bylaw number 72-2025, 73-2025, and 74-2025 be read and passed. Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Hearn. Any discussion on any of those? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. On to our cultural moment. Celebrating Lieutenant Samuel Lewis Honey, VC.
The Wellington North Cultural Roundtable presents A Cultural Moment. Samuel Lewis Honey. Samuel Lewis Lou Honey was born on February 9, 1894 in Caen, the eldest son of Reverend George and Meta Honey. Honey earned a teaching certificate and graduated in 1914 with credentials in teaching methods, later completing a cadet instructor course. Though he planned to attend college, the outbreak of war changed his path. On January 22, 1915, he enlisted. During basic training, he was promoted to acting sergeant and sailed to England that October. His rank led him to Aldershot for specialized courses in physical training and bayonet fighting, which he later taught at Bramshot Camp until August 1916. That same month, Honey became a sergeant and joined the 78th Infantry Battalion in France. His courage quickly stood out. On February 22, 1917, he earned the Military Medal for Gallantry after raiding a German trench under heavy grenade fire. At Vimy Ridge in April, he received the Distinguished Conduct Medal for leadership under intense fire. Later that year, he was commissioned as a lieutenant and returned to Bramshot as an instructor before completing officer training and returning to the front in October. In September 1918, during the assault on Burlawn Wood, Honey's regiment advanced through 3 enemy positions. On September 27th, after all commanding officers were killed, Honey assumed command. That day, he earned the Victoria Cross by single-handedly capturing a German position, its guns, and 10 prisoners. That night, he led another daring raid to seize a German post. Wounded on September 29, Honey died the next day, the final day of the 78th Battalion's attack. Admired by his men, Honey was buried in France. His legacy endures. A plaque first placed at Westcott United Church in Caen in 1964 now stands at the Royal Canadian Legion in Mount Forest. In 1975, his family donated his medals to the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa, ensuring his story remains part of Canada's proud military heritage.
Confirming bylaw. Recommendation of bylaw number 75-2025 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North at its regular meeting held on November 17th, 2025 be read and passed. Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Hearn. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And just the meetings notices, Mount Forest Chamber of Commerce has a meeting tomorrow from 5 to 6 p.m. Mount Forest BIA Annual General Meeting is at Sports Complex Meeting Room on the 19th from 8 to 9 a.m. Arthur Chamber of Commerce meeting is the 19th, as Councillor Hearn mentioned earlier, from 5:30 to 6:30 in the newly renovated Cozanet Center. And the Arthur BIA General Meeting virtually will be November 19th, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. And our next regular meeting of council is Monday, December the 1st. So if not before, we'll see all of you here.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, through you, Mayor Lennox. The plaque unveiling for Ray Morrison is on November 28th as well in the upper hall of the Arthur Arena. Sorry, I forgot to
Okay.
mention that.
Thank you for that. I know it's in my calendar, but so we'll move to adjournment. We have a recommendation that the regular council meeting of November 17th, 2025 be adjourned at 8:40 p.m. Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Rankin. All those in favor? That's carried. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.